This is my fourth Coalesce, I think, four. My first one here in the US. Last year I was in Sydney. The year before that I was in London. DBT is a pretty global thing anymore, so I'm really happy to be here with all of you. One quick thing. Anyone here from Philadelphia? Can I get a woo-woo? So the Philadelphia Phillies are playing right now as I'm on stage, and Nick Castellanos has the ability to do the funniest possible thing. Philadelphians will think that's funny. So anyway, I'm Drew, and I'm here to talk to you not about the Phillies, but about AI and DBT. So I'm one of the co-founders at DBT Labs. We started building DBT about 9 years ago. And I want to start by talking about this concept of the cost of creation. So this sounds like a kind of funny, abstract notion, but it's actually the most helpful framing I've heard for what AI is all about. So this is something I heard from Martin Casado, one of our investors at Andreessen Horowitz. And Martin said, the microchip has reduced the marginal cost of computation to zero. The internet has reduced the marginal cost of distribution to zero. And generative AI is reducing the marginal cost of creation to zero. I really like this framing because it helps us kind of understand in an intuitive sense what Gen AI is doing for us as a species. So I wanted to put this to the test, and I gave myself a challenge. In 2 minutes, I wanted to draw by hand and generate with an LLM a drawing of a man playing poker with some dogs. So I want you to inspect these two pictures. One of them I drew by hand. One of them was generated with a large language model. And it might help to look at the fingers. Sometimes the LLMs have a hard time rendering fingers. So I'm going to ask you on the count of three, shout out left or right, which one do you think I drew with a pencil and paper? 1, 2, 3. OK, I'm hearing a lot of left. That's the one I made. So I'm not an artist. I'm not actually talented at all, if you could tell, in art anyway. And so when we say that generative AI is reducing the marginal cost of creation to zero, it means stuff like this. With very little talent or ability or experience, I could create something that historically I could only dreamt of or paid someone to make. And now computers can do it. So we intuitively see this when we look at text or video or audio created by a large language model. It's still mind-blowing to me. And in the past, you needed hard-won skills, knowledge, and expertise. And today, this is all accessible to you for $20 a month. And that number is going down, not up. So the marginal cost of creating code is decreasing at the same time. In the past, you needed to read a book, talk to a coworker, trawl through Stack Overflow. And today, you can do a lot with computers and coding by asking your code editor. So the fundamentals still help. I'm not trying to say that the fundamentals are not important, but things that used to be time-consuming or laborious are now actually they cost close to zero to do. So AI code generation is very much here. And we're inspired by tools like Cursor and GitHub Copilot and Continue. And we think that these are amazing tools that are actually actively today changing how people write code. They work with DBT too, which is great. But when we looked at these tools and we thought about what we're trying to do with AI, we wanted to do something that went beyond the code, right? We want to think about the entire workflow that all of us do every day to help create value for our businesses. And so this made us think about the ADLC, the Analytics Development Lifecycle. So you probably heard Tristan talk about this yesterday at the keynote. And if you're not familiar, the ADLC is sort of like a manifestation of all the software engineering best practices that we use beyond the act of actually writing code. So we think that the opportunity here for us with AI is bringing AI to every single stage of this ADLC. And that's why I'm excited today to talk to you about DBT Copilot. So DBT Copilot is the AI engine in DBT Cloud designed to accelerate every single stage of the ADLC. It can help you ship faster, maintain data quality, make data more accessible, and more. And when we looked at the ADLC and we thought about where AI could help, the first stage that jumped out to us was development. So let's start by talking about development in the ADLC with AI and DBT Copilot. A lot of the work we do it's energizing, it's fun, it's creative. Sometimes we have to write YAML. It's the job. It's not always fun. So our goal with DBT Copilot is to automate the mundane so that you can focus on those highest leverage, most impactful problems. So there's a couple ways that we're going about this. We're generating model code using natural language. We're auto-documenting your models. And we're generating semantic models and metrics to help you build out a semantic layer. All in, we're trying to help you free up your time so that you can work on those human problems, talking to your coworkers across the aisle in your businesses, and creating a sense of meaning in the organization. So let's talk about each of these in order. First, generating model code using natural language. In the dbt Cloud visual editing experience, you can now generate SQL expressions using natural language. So this is things like string processing or date math or creating regular expressions, formatting, and more. All in, we think this will help make dbt development more accessible to a lot more people, which is a really powerful thing. Next, we just added support for auto-documenting your models. So it's a great idea to document your models. This helps your coworkers discover things that have already been built so that they can reuse instead of rebuild. But in order for people to find your work, you need to document it. So we think that we can do 80+% of the job of documenting models so that you can spend that 20% of your time on documenting uniquely interesting logic or quirks in the data that an LLM could never guess. And third, we're generating semantic models and metrics using dbt Copilot. So this helps reduce boilerplate and time spent writing YAML so that, again, you can focus on those KPIs that are unique to your business rather than, of course, writing YAML, which is important, but not always a lot of fun. So this is a great way to get started building out your semantic layer so that you can drive consistency in your reporting and for AI use cases as well. So I'm going to play a video here. We're going to take a look at dbt Copilot in action. OK, there is not supposed to be music on this. I don't know what that was. So I'm going to pull up a customers.sql model, and I have to run with the video. This is customers.sql, and it's a pretty normal dbt model. There's some data. There's some nulls. It looks fine. So I just wrote this model. And in the past, I would say, I made the model. My job's done. I'm going to PR it. But no, with dbt Copilot, I can go to the documentation action. And in the click of a button in a couple seconds, I can generate documentation scaffolding for this model. So here I've documented the model itself, as well as each of the columns in the model. And so this looks pretty good to me. If I wanted to update a couple columns, I could before saving and committing the change. But it looks great. Now that it's documented and I have all this time on my hand, I can also start building out my semantic layer. So I'll go to dbt Copilot, and I'll click the semantic model button. And again, in a couple seconds, we'll generate the scaffolding YAML for a semantic model for this dbt model. So we can see we have dimensions and entities and measures. And we can take a look through this. It references our model that we were just looking at, and a couple metrics and measures and dimensions. And this looks pretty good. But you know what? I think we're missing something. There's 3 measures here. And there's actually one very important one that I still have to add. So let's take a look at the lineage view. And we can see our dbt model flowing into the semantic model and 3 metrics. So if I want to add a new metric, I can go to dbt Copilot and click the metrics button and type in the metric that I'm trying to create. So in this case, I want month-to-date new customers. When I press generate, we'll get a suggestion for a new code block. And I can inspect this visually and say, that looks pretty good to me. I'm using the grain-to-month syntax, which I didn't have to Google. And it's using the right input measure. So I'll go ahead and accept that change. And now when I go to the lineage graph, I can see my 4th new metric, new customers month to date, showing up. And so I'm really happy. And now I'm done. Thank you, thank you. OK, so we're going to switch gears, and we're going to go to the new visual editor experience in dbt Cloud. Here I'm going to create a model and just do a little bit of scaffolding. So in this case, I'm going to grab the orders model, I believe. And we can take a preview and see some of the columns in this table, and again, scan through it. Looks like a pretty reasonable model. But I don't need all of the columns in this model. I only need a couple. So I'll just select order ID and order dat and preview again. And this is looking pretty good to me. So what I really want to do is some date math on the order dat column. And again, I could Google for my data warehouse how to find the difference between 2 dates. But with dbt Copilot and a really cool transition, you can type days between order dat and today. And behind the scenes, we'll generate a SQL expression to calculate a date diff. And here we can see at the bottom, on the far right-hand corner, there's a new column called days till today. And that looks great to me. So again, I didn't need to do a lick of SQL to do that. And I built out a new derived column in the visual editing experience. Cool. So that was the development stage, or at least part of what we're aiming to do with the development stage in the ADLC. And next, we can talk about testing. I'm not ignoring this side of the room. My notes are just over here. So I'm sorry. But OK. So Tristan, in the ADLC document that we published maybe a month ago, he wrote, the test phase is an absolutely essential part of the ADLC. This is one of those areas in which immature analytics workflows often fall farthest from the mark. And gosh, are some of you falling far from the mark. I'm very sorry to say, we know that about 50% of the dbt projects out in the world are not tested at all. I know that's nobody in this room, but we do know that testing can be quite tedious and slow. It's easy for even software engineers to say, I'll just merge this and come back and add tests later. But no one ever does. So we want to make it really, really, really easy to test your DBT code so that you don't have to think twice about adding tests. It's a natural part of your workflow. So this manifests in two ways. The first one available today is generating data tests in the IDE. We'll take a look at that in a second. So you can scaffold out data test YAML in the click of a button. Soon, you'll be able to mock input data and define unit tests for your DBT models in order to test logic for regular expressions, date math, long case when expressions, and things like that. So let's take a quick look at that in action. So I'll pull up my same customers.sql model from before. And remember, we just added documentation for this one, I think, in our last demo. And I'll go ahead and click the test button. And we'll go ahead and merge our new test logic with our existing documentation. And in this case, we added a unique and not null test to the customer ID column, which looks pretty good. If there are other columns here with foreign keys or an enumeration, we could test those as well. And you can see that after running the tests, everything came back green. So we feel pretty confident that this is a trustworthy data set now. Last, I want to take a look at the analysis phase of the ADLC. So has your CEO ever sent you a message like this? Hey, Drew, can I get those trailing 7-day numbers again? You probably want to say, WTF. I just sent it to you. I know you have it. But our executives, our stakeholders, they're busy people. They're very popular. They're in meetings a lot. So you say, yes, sir, right away. OK, this is fictionalized. Tristan is actually very good at writing SQL, and I do not call him sir. OK, so we think that the semantic layer is a huge part of making self-service governed and effective for analytics. And so we're supporting natural language question answering to unlock conversational data discovery using the DBT semantic layer. This will do two things. It will make your stakeholders very happy. It will free up your time so that, again, you could work on higher impact work, like cost reduction or refactoring, and all the things that you never quite get a chance to get to. So let's take a look at this in action in our chat with your data experience in our Snowflake native app. So if you haven't seen it, this is available inside of Snowflake. It runs in Snowflake. It's pretty cool. And I can ask a question like, tell me more about revenue. And here, we'll search the DBT semantic layer for our account, and I'll find a couple relevant metrics that have something to do with revenue. So I can click total revenue here, and we'll generate a semantic layer query in the background to calculate total revenue all time. So that's a pretty big number, and we should feel pretty happy about ourselves. But we want to understand it better. So we can say, let's break this down by market segment. And in natural language, I can start exploring my data. So we'll see that here broken down by market segment. Now, the really cool thing is we're showing a SQL query here, but this was not generated by a large language model. This SQL was generated deterministically and procedurally, the old-fashioned way, from a trusted, verified, version-controlled semantic layer. So our stakeholders can trust that this is exactly the right way to calculate this metric and not a hallucination. So I think Josh said this really well, Josh from Code 42. I'm sorry, Josh Carlson, Director of Analytics at Code 42. I'm going to put some respect on his name. So he said, my CFO doesn't want to see a dashboard. She wants direct answers, like our ARR for the quarter. With the ability to chat with her data powered by DBT Copilot, she can instantly query well-defined metrics using conversational language so that she can get the answers that she needs, and I can get out of the business of building dashboards. I'd clap for that myself. But you don't have to, because you didn't. OK. So anyway, thank you. It's so kind. We took a look at development, testing, and analysis in the ADLC and how we can accelerate these stages of the workflow with AI and DBT Copilot. Long term, we want to accelerate every single stage of the ADLC with DBT Copilot. And this is very much where we're going. So I wanted to lift up the hood on DBT Copilot and tell you just a little bit about how we're building this thing. The first thing I want to tell you is that you can bring your own keys. So if you want, you can use our OpenAI account, and we'll run LLM inference queries for you. If you want to bring your own OpenAI or soon Azure OpenAI keys, you can do that. In the future, we're also looking into support for other model providers, so beyond OpenAI. And that's pretty exciting for a bunch of reasons. Pretty exciting for companies who are not currently able to use OpenAI. The second thing, and this is really, really cool, I think, is that we know that conventions are really, really important for the SQL that we all write. So I was actually in the meeting, I think, with Erica Louie on our data team back in 2018, where we wrote the first version of our SQL style guide. So if you have a style guide in your team today, it was probably based on that original style guide written by Erica. So we've had ours for 6 years, and it helps make sure that all the code we write on our data team at DBT Labs is consistent and coheres to a well-defined set of conventions. We want to make that same thing possible for your organizations with AI. So the idea is you can define your own style guide, and then we'll use that style guide when generating SQL or testing models or doing other DBT actions to ensure that the code that DBT Copilot meets your organizational conventions. If you want to use leading commas, don't tell me, but you can tell the DBT Cloud IDE. OK, and last, just our guiding principles for DBT Copilot. We want to make the best practice way to do it the easiest way to do it. It should be so easy to do the thing that is going to help you the most in the long run, right? So inform defaults that guide developers towards best practices. We want DBT Copilot to be unobtrusive. So it's there when you want it, and it's out of your way when you don't. And finally, we want to complete the workflow. So we want to link different stages of the ADLC together to complete the entire workflow. It's great that we can automate individual stages, but we really want to help you go from development to deployment and observing your deployment to fixing errors that popped up in production. We think that's where the real value is. So we talked about a bunch of different functionality today, and I just wanted to recap what's available today and what's coming soon. So today in the IDE, you can generate data tests, documentation, semantic models and metrics, and you can chat with your data in the Snowflake native app. Soon, you'll be able to generate unit tests, model SQL, and do a lot more in the visual editing experience in DBT Cloud. And in the future, we're looking into domains like data discovery, recommendations, code review, and support for other LLM providers outside of OpenAI. So that's all I had for you today. I would love to hear from you if you've got good ideas or questions. And I think we actually might have about 10 minutes for questions. So if anyone has one, we can pass the mic around. Let's see. Oh, thank you. OK, let's hear it.
What does it take to set up the Snowflake integration?
It's a great question. I'm going to repeat it just for the recording, I think. What does it take to set up the Snowflake native application? Good question. So this is available to our managed customers, I believe, currently. We released this over the summer. If you're interested, we can have a conversation about it, which I think is step one of setting it up. Yeah. Cool. How about back here?
So the current semantic layer, like the table that was created using single model, can we join two models and create one semantic table? Like, just in my case, we have multiple events and different tables or different models for each event. Now I want to join and create single semantic layer table or model.
Great question. So the question was, can you create semantic models that join across multiple different tables? So the answer to that question is yes. In the DBT Cloud semantic layer, you can define the sort of join conditions across these different tables together, and then you can query metrics, and we'll calculate joins. Can DBT Copilot do that? Good question. I haven't tested it. It'd be a great one to follow up on. I'd love to find you after. We can try it together and see what happens. Yeah. OK, perfect. Thank you. How about up here? I'm sorry. I'll stop ignoring you in a second. Yeah, right here.
Are there any hopes for DBT core users to have a Copilot at some point?
Really good question. Is there a way for DBT core users to use DBT Copilot? I would say that's currently not how we're thinking about DBT Copilot. We plug it into the metadata that we collect in DBT Cloud. And so when you're using open source, we don't have this pool of metadata available. What I would say is there are awesome tools like Cursor or GitHub Copilot. And so if you're looking to generate SQL or YAML or things like that, these tools do a good job of doing that out of the box. I think what DBT Copilot brings is all of these different phases of the ADLC all linked together, not just the development part. So you can very much do this today using DBT Core and some of the tools available in the market. Yeah. Good question. How about, was there a question over here? Yeah.
Right. So we have dimensions facts in our data warehouse, a dimensional model, right? And then our data marts have aggregates, right? And so you're saying with Copilot, we can click the button and turn them into metrics in the semantic layer?
Yes, so that's one of the cool things we've been working on is we know some folks have historically built their own roll-up tables. And you're computing, is it like daily or monthly aggregate, something like that? Yes, we want to do like a one-click experience to convert that aggregated model into a semantic model and sort of help you get rid of those DBT models that are report specific. That's the goal.
I got my answer.
Perfect. That's a great question. Thank you. OK, there's a question over here.
I was just curious, what aspects are available with the Cloud CLI?
Also a really good question. Today, everything I showed you is available in the DBT Cloud IDE and the visual editor. But we very much want DBT Copilot to show up in all of these different like coding modalities. So whether that's visual or on the command line or in the IDE, we want you to be able to access the same types of things. So we haven't done that yet, but we want to do it. It's a great question. OK, maybe we'll do like one or two more. I see it in the corner over here. Can everyone also just give a round of applause for Michelle and Shakshu running around the whole room? Thank you so much, both of you. OK, great.
Would you be implementing chat with data with other sources too, or just Snowflake?
Oh, yes. The question is, will we be implementing the chat with your data experience beyond the Snowflake native app? Currently, we are planning to do that. I don't know how much of this I'm able to reveal at this moment, but we want to bring this into DBT Cloud proper, support all of the integrations that DBT Cloud currently supports, very much so. I'll say one more thing. I think that the visual editor, some of the work we're doing in Explorer, and especially some AI work that we're doing around natural language data discovery in Explorer, these things are all going to pair very well with like chat with your data, for example, to be like a one-stop shop for finding and querying data sets. Yeah. OK. Is there one more? I see one more, and then maybe we'll call it there. Thanks.
Really impressive work. I think one question on everyone's mind is, how can we get access to this?
It's like I planted you in the audience. Thank you so much. The question was, how do I get access to this? So currently, we're in like a private beta for DBT Copilot. But right on the other side of Coalesce, we're looking to open that up to a lot more people. So I'd say stay tuned over the next couple of weeks for more. If you have a DBT Cloud managed account currently, you can talk to your account manager. We can hook you up same day. If you're not yet using DBT Cloud, you'll be able to opt into it in the next little bit, let's say. I like your shirt too, by the way. Is it a Triforce?
It's a Legend of Zelda.
Hell yeah. Thank you. Great question. OK, thanks everyone for coming. I really appreciate it.